and author of the new book, Life is What You Make It, Find Your Own Path to Fulfillment. Peter, welcome to the Young Turks. So first, let me start with what people are, of course, most curious about. Is your dad going to give you all his money, or is it true that what we read that he's not going to give it to you? And in which case, how much do you get, and is that kind of a raw deal?
Let's see. I'll start with no, we're not going to get his money. Pretty famously, he gave it all away in 2006, and I suppose he still got some. But you know, we never grew up thinking we were going to get it. We didn't even think about it, you know, in terms of money. He just did what he loved every day, and we did our thing as kids. And it turns out he made a lot of money. It wasn't any sort of central focus in our life, so we didn't really think about getting it. And I guess therefore, it's never been thought of as some kind of raw deal that we aren't getting it, because, you know, he did his thing and he did really well at it. You know, and a lot of people don't believe this or think it's kind of weird or even mean, I guess. But why should I get his money? I mean, that's like, he's doing what he loves. It makes a lot of money. I do what I love. I'm making enough money. I'm fine. So life is good.
See, you know, Peter, my dad was a small businessman. He had some money, but he was a lot like your dad and thought I should earn my money. So I had to work on construction sites that he had at $2 an hour to buy myself a bike and a black and white TV. Now, was your dad that strict? Did you have to, or was he like, all right, bounds of reason. I mean, you're going to get, you know, everything you need, but I still need you to work and, you know, be your own man, etc.
Well, he, for instance, he paid for our higher education. So while we were in college, I say we, myself and my siblings. So it's not like we didn't, because, you know, that's expensive. Even back in the 70s when we were all going, it's a big deal. So that's actually pretty great. In terms of other help, really, I mean, what happened is my grandfather left all of the grandchildren a farm. So we had a little bit of money when we, you know, were young, like 19, 20 years old. It was when I got it, it was about $90,000, which at the time it was a lot of money. I mean, I could experiment with life there for a little bit. I could have spent it in an afternoon if I wanted to, but I never expected and did not get any money from my dad, basically ever. You know, because we had that little bit of money to start with. It was expected that that's a lot, figure it out. And, you know, we've never even thought we could borrow money from my dad. And again, I don't consider that to be, you know, tight-fisted or stingy or something. That's actually an act of love and respect, saying, you don't need my help. You can figure it out. That's not to say sometimes it wasn't frustrating, but I would say all in all, it was really great, and for sure I'm thankful for it now.
All right, so I just one last point here because people are so incredulous about it. So if you needed a car and he was, you know, would he have stepped up to the plate, or any of your siblings? Or if, you know, people are human, and so somebody runs into a gambling problem or a credit card problem, etc. Your dad was just not going to give it, or bounds of reason say, all right, look, I got you covered there, but you got to get back on the path?
I would, now we've never gone, and I probably am the one of the three that went the furthest towards like almost going, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I had a house I couldn't afford and mortgages and all that stuff. You know, my dad cared about me. He was checking in, making sure everything was okay. But he didn't rescue me. So, and certainly when I bought a car, it was out of the money, you know, that $90,000, that's when I bought my car. And then if I wanted another one, it had, you know, so I'm not sure. I would assume if we were really in trouble, my dad would come to our rescue. We've never pushed it, but I can tell that I think all of us in one way or another have been close to some edge, and we figured it out. And I tell you, we feel a lot better about ourselves because we did.
Absolutely, and that goes towards your book. And so you say life is what you make it. Of course, people are going to say, well, easy being the son of Warren Buffett, but as you explain here, exactly. that wasn't the case at all. So tell me about what's in the book and the lessons.
Well, you know, it really started from a lot of what we've been talking about so far. So people would come up to me fairly often in the last decade or so and say, yeah, you're Warren Buffett's son. You're so normal. And that seemed, pretty funny. But then also, it became sadly true. The more I kind of learned about other people, I guess, in my position, whatever you call that. And so I thought that was sort of the seed of the book, even though I never thought I'd actually write a book. But it was that idea of, wow, maybe I have something valuable to talk about that might help other people and get them off this idea that it's cliche, money buys happiness or money makes you feel better about things. Now, of course, you got to put food on the table and a roof over your head. Money's nice to have, but my dad lives the same way he lived 40 years ago or any other time in his life, and that's pretty spectacular in the sense that it's such an example of it's not about the money. It's about loving life and doing what you love and being passionate about it and that kind of stuff.
All right. Now, have you guys ever talked to your siblings, et cetera, saying, hey, you know what? That's a great role model, et cetera. But on the other hand, it would be nice to ride in a private jet and sit by a poolside, and be nice if we can go on vacations wherever we wanted, et cetera. Does that resentment at all happen or not at all?
I can pretty comfortably speak for my brother and sister here, and I would say no. I don't think it hasn't, because it kind of gets back to one of these other questions I've been enjoying talking about lately, which is how much is enough? And right. You see in the headlines, that people have all this money, and it's like houses or cars or boats or now, I live fine. My siblings and we all live happily, and we're able to do most everything probably everything we want to do. And because it's not, I don't know, the feeling of excess isn't there. And I think that's got to come from my parents. I mean, again, if you walked in right now to my dad's house, he'd probably be in a bathrobe eating a ham sandwich, reading like he did in 1965. So we just maybe think a little differently.
That's great. So now let's talk about philanthropy, because your dad is one of the three richest people in the world, and he's decided to give away almost all of his money. Do you think has that always been an assumption that if you make this kind of money that you have some obligation to the rest of society, in a society that helped to create that kind of wealth, et cetera, to give back?
Yeah, and actually, you hit it right there at the end. That's exactly the way my dad feels about it. Is he would say he won what he calls the ovarian lottery. You can. It depends on your belief system, but essentially, you are born into a system. You have no idea where, when, what color you are, what gender you are, what anything, and so he considers it an extremely fortunate spot to have been born, frankly, a white male who was into numbers at the time when capitalism and, gender equality, whatever it was, all these things worked in his favor, almost everything. And that's a function of society, the world he was born into. So he feels it's imperative, and I mean, it's obvious that if you were that lucky and society gave you that much support to do what you loved every day, then whatever came out of that should go back to the system that made it in the first place. It's pretty great. It's too bad more people don't think that way.
I couldn't agree more. So can we give the audience a sense of what percentage of his money he is giving to philanthropy, and then what percentage remains, I guess, for family, friends, just regular part of the will?
Well, I mean, if I had to, I don't know the ratio, but it's probably like 99.9, maybe 8. It's most of it, I guarantee you. And it might be like 99.9997. It's a lot. It's most of it. It's all going back to the world.
Peter, do you guys know what your inheritance is? I mean, did he tell you, look, I'm going to leave every grandkid $1 million or something, and then I'm giving everybody everything else away, or is that not clear?
No, we basically do. I mean, it's been very nice recently, in particular, and since my mother died specifically, I think it became more clear, and especially with the philanthropy work and everything, to know what's coming, what's going on, all that. So we have a pretty good idea of what's going on, and that's why I'm saying that again, it could be 99.97. We're not getting a lot, and that's, and especially, I mean, for us, it's plenty. I mean, for us, it's like, what a wonderful thing, what a blessing. But people would think you got to be kidding, because it's just such a small amount. But who needs it? I mean, that's kind of what it gets down to. I think the world.
I got a couple of friends, including my best friend Bora, who would totally disagree. Who would say, "What are you talking about? Give me the money."
Trust me, yeah. There's no shortage of takers out there that would. My dad's probably going to get 100 more letters now tomorrow on what he can do with money.
All right, so I love the theme of the book. It's called "Life is What You Make It." Find your own path of fulfillment. And Peter, one last thing before I let you go. I read today in the news that Warren Buffett is talking to Ben Nelson to get a loophole for the current existing derivatives, which Berkshire Hathaway has. Don't let him get corrupted by that stuff. You remember, he's the original guy who said derivatives are financial weapons of mass destruction, and to ask for loopholes, and he's got to get out of Goldman Sachs investment as soon as he can. I'm starting to worry he's going to get corrupted by that stuff.
It's interesting. If the day my dad gets corrupted, I don't know what. That will be a day to see. But I know what you're saying. You got it. It's crazy out there right now. That's all I know for sure. Because that stuff, I just stay as far away from it as possible. But usually, I think a bet on my dad is a pretty good bet.
Yeah, well, that's certainly been proven historically. Before I let you go, actually, I've been saying that we're going to hit an iceberg. Does your dad say internally to you guys, the family members, hey, get ready, there's some sort of financial collapse coming? Or does he believe, no, we're going to get this reform worked out and the markets are going to be fine?
He's a huge believer, ultimately, in the system, more so than I am, frankly. I mean, he really does. And he doesn't predict the future at all. And we certainly don't talk about this stuff because, again, that's everybody wants to know what's going to happen. And the first thing he'll say is, I don't know. Nobody does. You can't predict it. But I can tell you that he's hugely supportive of the system. And like I said, me, I'm not so sure. But he knows it inside and out like nobody else. I'm sure of that. And so if he believes in it, the odds are he's right.
Well, certainly that would be the way to bet over the last many, many decades. All right, Peter Buffett, the author of Life is What You Make It. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
All right.